Good evening, and welcome to the Phantasmagorium. I am your host, the Creeper of Channel X. Here, we have all varieties of treats for you to experience, and maybe a few tricks. It is sometimes said that we live in a simulation. My question for you is, how will we know when the simulation becomes real? This next tale will begin to blur that line for you. We now present my Halloween virtual reality experience. This happened a couple of years ago when I was 18. I had just finished high school and was only working part-time, so I had tons of free time, and most of it was spent with my girlfriend. When Halloween came, we made plans to attend a friend's party, but that fell apart in a big way. Long story. So, we decided to have some fun and seek out some haunted houses. We live in one of the biggest cities in the Midwest, so there was a lot to choose from. Most of the places we visited were pretty cheesy. Some guy in a bedsheet jumping out and yelling "boo," the occasional plastic spider, you know the stuff. But then, we came to one that was really something else. It was a fairly small booth, set up down a busy pedestrian street, and was marketing some sort of tech company. Virtuous something, maybe? I don't know. I had never heard of it before, and I didn't really bother trying to remember it. Besides, it wasn't the company that was supposed to draw your attention. It was the sign, which read, "Experience pure horror in VR." Now, I always thought VR was cool, but being a broke teenager, I never actually had the chance to use it, so I was pretty excited. My girlfriend felt differently. Normally, she was a huge horror junkie, but this time, she seemed spooked. I asked her what was up, and she said that it just felt off to her. I shrugged my shoulders and told her to wait for me to come back, then stepped into the booth. Inside of the booth, an admittedly quite attractive lady directed me to a chair and placed a VR headset on me. She asked me if I was ready. When I said yes, the screen turned on, and I immediately found myself in the most immersive virtual world I had ever been in. The graphics were amazing, not quite photorealistic, but the total immersion of VR made that irrelevant. I felt like I was really in that world. Within the simulation, I was strapped to a rail car. There was no real way to move, but I could rotate my head and look around me. As the rail car started, I was brought through an amusement park-esque haunted house experience. At first, it was really tame, and thus, kinda lame. Lots of ghosts and vampires and other basic stuff, though the sheer immersion did make it a bit more interesting than a regular haunted house. Now, the whole experience was mostly like that. Generic Halloween monsters and jump scares. But what really sold the experience was the narration. The narrator had a soft but confident voice. It really reminded me of a college professor. In fact, what he was talking about was kind of like a lecture, as he kept going on and on about the inevitability of death, man's irrelevance to nature, and how God didn't exist. As the ride went on, and the voice kept talking in my ear, I found myself getting more and more scared. Not at any one thing, but just the way that the narrator would distract me just enough for the monsters to take me by surprise. And then, when I was used to the monsters, the narrator would come back into focus and remind me of the emptiness of existence. As the narration went on, things started to get more personal. He started to shift focus away from God and nihilism and onto my family and loved ones. He started asking me if I loved my girlfriend more for her personality or for her body. He asked me if I thought my parents were happy that I was born. As he was saying these things, the monsters jumping out started to change. Instead of zombies and vampires, it was my father, covered in blood. My mom, with her wrists slit. And my girlfriend, with half of her face blown off. At one point, the monster that jumped out was me at the age of 14. He was holding a gun, and the narrator asked me if I was truly happy that I hadn't killed myself. I don't even know how he could have known about that. Eventually, the ride came to an end. The rail car stopped, and a hooded man appeared. He spoke to me, and I realized that he was the narrator. He said that though my journey was at an end, he was going to leave me with something that would make me remember it for the rest of my life. Then, he pulled out a knife and ran it across my forehead. The screen went black, and the headset was lifted off of me by the attractive assistant. I thanked her and walked outside to meet my girlfriend. I told her all about the experience and how immersive it was. What she had to say once I was done will stick with me forever. She pointed at my forehead and said, "How did you get that cut?" How far does virtuality blur before it becomes reality? Until next time, sweet nightmares.